Hello everyone, welcome to video number 3 for module 2. In this particular video, we are going to talk about missing values and how to treat those missing values. So to start with, to give you a bit of idea what is happening behind the scenes, we're going to explore these functions is NA or is null, right? So we can use any of these functions. They provide same functionality, so it doesn't matter, just stick to one, right? So let me show you what is happening behind the scenes. So we know that the housing data frame already has some missing values. So if I print the housing data frame, we got some information, right? So in this particular case, we don't have any missing value, right? However, we know what those values are in terms of numbers or the strings or the categories, right? So let's say I use is null. So housing underscore data frame dot is null. So what is null does? It takes every single value, for example 344.2 from the data frame, processes it. If it is not null, it is going to return false. What we are asking here within this data frame is null. It is not null, so it returns false value. If it is null, if it is missing, then it's going to return a true value. So this will be very useful because we can use the outcome of this particular function to do conditional selection. So let me show you what I mean by that. So just keep in mind that it returns two values, true or false. False when it is not null, true when a given value in a data frame is null, right? So let's say let's stick to let's pick up any one of these. Let's say the total value. So let's say in total value column, I only want to print out the rows where we have missing values so that I know which rows has missing values and I can start treating those, right? So we're going to use lock or the location, what we discussed in the previous lecture. So housing underscore data frame dot lock. And in this case, we want to do a conditional selection. So housing data frame total value column, so total value is null, and only return the rows where is null is true. So let's execute this. So I have three rows, or sorry, three transactions. Transaction number 104, in which case the total value is NaN, not a number, or it is a null value, null value, null value, right? So for these three particular transactions, the total value is missing. Similarly, I mean, in this particular case, we also have text missing for these three transactions and so on, right? However, some of the other values, they exist. But what we end up doing here, we only selected the columns where a particular attribute's values are missing, right? Equals to true. So let's say I want to display the spaceborne remodel. So let's run that. So we have these four transactions, 118, 119, 120, 121, where the remodel value is missing, right? So it's NaN. Similarly, you can try other variations as well. So what I mean by that, for example, in this case, minus 447.6. Give me all the rows where the total value is negative, right? So we can again use conditional selection. So let's say total value. So total, okay, hang on. Let me just add a new code here. So we want to display housing underscore data frame lock housing underscore data frame dot total value less than 0, right? Okay, sorry, I just typed equal less than 0. There we go. So we have row number 5802 where we have negative value for the total value, right? So this lock is a very powerful function. It can allow you to do these conditional statements, which is very handy, especially when you're doing these kind of activities, right? Okay. So let's look into one more way to kind of identify missing values. So what you can use is null. So if I go here and use housing data frame dot is null, and I simply do the sum. So which means whenever it returns false, add those instances, right? So let's print it out. So what we have here, total value column name, there are 3 missing values. Text column, 3 missing values, and so on. Fireplace, 6 missing values, right? So is null, so it's going to return false for the missing values, and we add up all those false values in order to get the total number of missing values, right? So the next thing is, okay, how do we treat these missing values? So I'm not going to kind of mess up the housing data frame. So I'm going to create a new data frame, housing. Okay, so we want to treat the missing value. So very first thing we want to do, we want to drop a simpler approach, right? But drop may not be applicable when your data set size is very small, right? So in that case, you want to replace the missing values with some meaningful information. But in this case, very first thing, let me show you how to drop the missing values. So let's have a data frame. So I'm just going to keep it simple. Housing data frame 1, housing underscore data frame dot copy. So we copy the data frame. So to start with, housing underscore data frame 1 dot shape, and we know that there are 5,802 rows, and housing SING housing underscore data frame dot is null dot sum, so that, okay, here we go. So we have missing values as well. And from here, what we want to do is we want to use a simple drop, which means drop any row in which you encounter one or more missing values, right? So as soon as you see one missing value, you're just going to drop the row, right? So for that, it's simple. So housing underscore data frame 1 equals to housing underscore data frame 1. So why we need to do equals? Because otherwise the information is not saved, right? So when you're doing this, you're assigning the modified data frame to the df1, right? So just overriding the existing values. So what we can say, drop any, right? So drop not applicable. And if we look into housing underscore data frame 1 dot shape, so let's do that. So initially we had 5,802 rows. Now we have 5,786 rows. So rows which have null values are dropped out of this data frame, right? Okay. So let's say now I only want to drop the rows in which all the values for all attributes are missing, right? So in that case, you need to be explicit. So what I mean by that, so in this case, this is going to remain same. What we're going to pass a parameter, how equals to all. No, okay, all, right? So anyways, in this case, this won't make any difference because in our data frame, we have no row where all values are missing, right? So in this case, it will only remove the rows where all of the values are missing, right? So another variation on drop not applicable. So in housing data frame, I want to only drop the rows where remodel is missing, right? So again, the process is going to remain same. So I'm going to call a new data frame so that we're not messing around, so I can show you the difference. So housing underscore data frame 2 df2 equals to housing underscore df copy, right? So let's copy that. Now we're going to work with data frame number 2 df2, and we have df2 here, drop not applicable, and we're going to pass a parameter for subset. So in subset, we're going to pass the column names. So I'm going to pass only remodel, right? So let me print out the shape now. Let's leave out the shape. Let's just print out housing underscore df2 dot is null dot sum. So let's do that. So as we can see here, in this case, the remodel has now no missing values. So you can pass one column. We can pass more than one column as well. So for that, you just simply use comma. And let's say for lot square foot, we have 3, right? Okay, hang on, guys. Just somehow the keyboard settings are changed. I think we are back in the business. Okay, so we have, let's say, living area, LIVING underscore area, right? So let's rerun it. So now we have removed the missing values of the rows, transactions where remodel and the living area are missing, right? So again, I have just shown you the different ways. It all depends on type of question being asked or the data analysis requirements, right? If your data set is already too small, you don't want to be dropping too many entries with the missing values, right? So you may want to draw few, or you may work around with the other values, right? So in this case, let's expand on this. So at this point, we end up doing dropping, right? So we dropped the values, the transactions or the rows where the values were missing, right? So now what we want to do is we want to fill. Instead of dropping, we want to fill some values for missing entries, right? So let's work with housing data frame number 2. For housing data frame number 2, we already know that there are some missing values for the total value, for the tax, for the lot square footage, and so on, right? So I want to replace, let's say, tax with a average. So replace missing tax value with an average. So I'm going to create a new variable. I'm going to call it tax average. And remember, we can use descriptive stats, right? Or we can just use mean in order to get the average value, right? So housing underscore data frame number 2 dot tax, right? And mean. And let's see if we have calculated this value correctly. Sorry, data frame number 2, guys. Okay. So now we have the average tax value, but it doesn't look very neat, right? Just so many decimal places. So let's kind of round it. So tax average equals to round. We want to round it up. So tax average, comma, two decimal places, right? So that seems good. So we got happy with the tax average value. Now we want to fill the average value, or replace missing tax with average tax. Okay, so we have housing underscore data frame 2, and we want to replace the value in a specific column. for the specific attribute, which is tax. So housing underscore data frame 2 dot tax. So use a function is called fill NA, and we want to fill in tax average value for that, right? Okay, so let's do that. We have to replace that missing value with the average, and from here we can is null sum, right? So here we go. So before that, there was one missing value for tax. Now we have replaced that missing value with the average tax value, right? Okay. All right. So before we move any further, let me show you one more thing. So yes, we managed to replace the missing value in tax with average, right? So let's say I want to just cross-check. So what you can do is, before replacement, like we already know in this data frame, housing data frame number 2. So housing underscore data frame 2 dot location, housing underscore data frame 2 dot tax dot is null equals to true. So by this we will know the transaction number 346 has a missing value for tax, right? Now we executed this particular piece of code, and now I can display actually. So housing underscore data frame 2 dot block, and I want to display, so that transaction number was 346. So let's say row number 344 to 347. So I just want to display a few rows here, and here's the row number 346. Yes, some other values are still missing, but we managed to replace the tax value with average, right? So this is only to cross check, right? So as long as you're sure that you have done the correct replacement, you don't need to do these steps, right? Right, so let's say next we want to fill total value, because we still have one not applicable there, sorry, missing value. So total value, we want to replace the missing in total value with median. Remember, in total value we have one negative value, so we don't want to be influencing average with that outlier, right? So I want to use median value for the total. So I'm going to declare another parameter. So I'm going to call it total val underscore median. And we have housing data frame 2 dot total value dot median. Okay. Housing data frame, sorry, housing data frame underscore. Okay, so we got the median. So let's print out the total median just to show you guys that we got this here. So here we go, 357.9, right? So rest remains same. So we have housing data frame number 2 and equals, sorry, total value equals housing data frame number 2 dot total value dot fill NA with total val median, right? So we have filled that, and we already know that where that is missing, that's the row number 346. So I'm just going to copy and paste this here so that we can display those values. So as we see, we had replaced row number 346, which was missing before, with a median value, right? So that's how you kind of work with numbers to replace these values. So there are a few more missings. So if I just quickly go to next cell, and let me just bring this here. So housing data frame 2 is null. So a few more missing values, so I will leave that to you guys. So do a bit of practice, try to replace those values with median and average, or with some other number, right? If you're replacing with some other number, it is very easy. Let's say in this particular case, we managed to find out what was that missing value, right? So let's say I'm going to replace that missing value with, let's say 564, something like that, right? So if I run this, and in this case, we have total value. Well, anyways, in this case, it will not make any difference because we kind of removed the missing value already from the housing data frame number 2. So no, let me throw one more example here, what I mean by this, in case you are going to replace with that value with a specific number. So let's pick up this lot square footage size. So let's assume that we did some investigation and we managed to find out that the lot square foot in this particular case for transaction number 346 is 7200, right? I'm replacing this value with a constant, right, or a number which is known now. So let's take that. So I have this particular transaction number 346, and I want to replace it for lot square foot. So we can use loc or location. So housing underscore data frame 2 dot loc, and this is 346, so 346 comma, and we have lot underscore square foot, and in this particular case we know that this lot square foot value is 7200, something like that, right? And now we want to display these values again, so I'm just going to take this code here and let's put that here, and here we go. This replaced with 7200. So you can, yes, you can replace with a constant for a particular cell, right? If I use this constant value in the fill not applicable, fill NA, this is going to replace all of null values for a given attribute with that constant, right? Okay. So I will stop this video here. In next video, we'll talk about how to replace the categorical variables. So the categorical variables here, we already did one example where we kind of dropped the transactions where the remodel was missing. However, we know that in remodel we have 3 different categories: old, none, and recent. So we want to replace any missing values with those categories. So we'll do that in next video. Thank you.